Very good.
Okay, it's working. Meeting's being recorded.
Hi,
Yay!
Satnam, everyone. Welcome to Spiritual Nerd Talk Prosperity Edition. I got my Hermes scarf on for that one. I'm like, yeah.
Nice. That's why I'm wearing a
jacket.
a nice wool
I
sports
love it.
coat here.
That's what we got to
We're
do.
ready. We're ready
It's
to
also
nerd out.
not so hot for summer, but I do actually have a little air going.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Remington, for taking this time to be on our nerd chat.
Yeah, I really want an opportunity to nerd out. So
Yeah,
I
it's
actually
perfect.
love the title. It's very endearing and probably true to heart because I know Jamila well, we could just talk about all of this stuff like literally for days straight and not even sleep.
It's true. No, this is a perfect nerd trifecta. I'm really psyched for this. Thank you.
Oh my God, the nerd trifecta. How amazing is that terminology, please?
Oh my gosh. Well, so I've been reading your book, Remi, and I completed it and I'm starting the practices, and I just want to start out by saying thank you so much for writing this book. This book is incredibly important. And I know we feel the same way, all of us, is that the conscious people on the consciousness path, people that are connecting to their higher selves, we need to be really rich, and I'm not seeing it enough in my own self and around me. And this book is the only incredibly practical guidebook that I know of. So just thank you so much, first of all.
Well, you got one of the first copies, so of
Is
the
this a
shipments
VIP
that I
treatment?
got. I think you got it before. Well, you happened to be here right all in the same time when I got my copy, so it really worked
Yeah,
out.
we were lucky.
Well, I appreciate that. So you actually read it. You read it cover to cover.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And then
It's kind
I'm going to
of
be going into it deeper.
a few
though.
people messaged me like the day they got it and they read it that night. I guess it's kind of a fast read. But because in writing this at first I was a little dumbfounded. I'm sure just in general. I mean, I have published books under my belt now, and like numerology was kind of easy because you have numbers. Oh yes, thank you.
It's my favorite numerology book, by the way, on planet Earth, and I have many.
Thank you.
So good.
My intention for numerology was I wanted to lay down that this is the numerology book.
Oh yeah,
to last for generations, and I just wanted to lay it down. And I may write numerology number 2 and go deeper because everyone wants to know like I'm seeing 777 or 999 or was it triple numbers? People go crazy over that. So I always like have a funny character in my head that's like a smarmy, like new agey guy. And then he sets an alarm for like every time it's like 222 or 111, and then like texts every girl he knows, like, hey, just thinking of you, 222. You got to be in the same time zone. But I like Europe, it's military time. So to us as an American, we call it military time, the 24-hour time, so you have more numbers to work with.
Yes, we do.
Numerology on some level was kind of an easy book to write because it's numbers 1 through 11 and I added 0. So I write 12 numbers and here are the 5 placements and how to do a chart. What is numerology? I had a dear friend who's a very seasoned author and worked in publishing for many, many years. And she coached me through it. And I was making it so hard in my head, even though it's numbers 1 through, 12 numbers, basically 0 through 11. And so that really locked in my brain, just write which is a shitty first draft is the terminology, get it out. And so I literally was able to write numerology in a day and a half, the first draft. And then because it's a long workshop, right? So I'm kind of just teaching a long workshop and and then it's months of cleaning that up. But prosperity practices, there's so many. Like I could have doubled this book. I wanted to leave room for prosperity practices #2. I have mine bookmarked from an event I did in New York. But so I was struggling, and I just meditated on it. And I realized on some level what I'm sharing is almost like a cookbook, because like some of these practices, like don't complain. All right. We did it for 40 days, for example. So what am I going to say? So don't complain for 40 days. Right. And then do I over explain it? And so as I started the process, once I kind of thought, oh, in a way, it's almost like a cookbook of recipes. My editor was really wise in how she thought it could break down really well, which was like 4 sections: attitude of gratitude, the gift of giving, the power of the word, for example. And so we sectioned it off like that. And then I wrote out the practices. But as I started to, I really wanted it to show how these are not just like practical, meaning just put this into action, but here's some experience of the results. So kind of by default, I shared a lot of my experience, and I didn't want to write a book about me. And I was a little nervous and a little vulnerable, even though it's not like long-winded memoir of my problems and then here's the solution. But I've read books, similar types of work. There's a really popular one that really hit in the 2000s. I'm not going to mention its name, but it's out there. It's not a secret. You can find it. And
That was funny.
That was good.
but I'm not going to mention it. But I feel like I've seen a lot of stuff in a certain vein. It really preys on fantasy, right? So people just want to sort of ambiguously manifest a bunch of crap. They don't even have any bearing or caliber or knowledge of like their soul and their soul's purpose. Ultimately, I went through a transition of sort of everything got zeroed out. I essentially lost everything. I was beyond broke, and then I was suicidal. And it was in one day. And for me, that first practice was making the longest gratitude list I've still ever made in my life. I was in the process of getting evicted. I'd lost my job. I was in this major gap if I would even get approved for unemployment, because I had a spotty history at that time, because I had been in transition and moving and things like that. And so and then I was in LA, and I didn't know anybody really. LA is a beautiful city that I personally am in love with now. But at that time, if you don't have those connections or community, it's a very vast, lonely, and expensive place. And I didn't know like what to do. I had no place to go back to. Like I didn't have, oh, let me just move back home, get my head straight and figure out my life. Like that wasn't an option for me. So it literally started with doing this forever long, like notebook worth of gratitude list, where I essentially listed like every material possession in order, which was not much at the time. I literally had a suitcase and a carry-on worth of stuff. But that shift in realizing and surrendering to a higher destiny. So it wasn't at that time, I'm like, let me manifest a Ferrari with my mind, because I read it in this book that like even these things aren't secret. A lot of this is hermetic magic, right? So hermetic magic, which is so much of my background, where everything is some variation of universal vibrational frequency. So it's easy to start causing change when you sort of tap into that notion and that consciousness. And that gratitude list sort of set it all from there. 100 days later, I discovered Kundalini yoga. And for me, that was a big process and a big shift. But then I adopted these other techniques. So in alignment with the yoga, which, by the way, I grew up on a yoga ashram with Swami Satchidananda, but I hadn't been exposed as much to Kundalini. Um, and I went in, it was literally 100 days later after all of this, that I went in to a class, and the teacher, a lot of you may know Gurjas, and she said, well, these are teachings that were only taught in secret until recently. And she sort of went into the story. And I was like, okay, I'm in the right spot. Because my formal training from a teenager had been all Hermetic magic, mystical Kabbalah, and basically secret Western mystery tradition. So I have an affinity for these quote secrets, but they're not that secret. And that sort of started this process. But these practices in here combine Hermetic magic, some of the teachings I grew up with Swami Satchidananda. There's a lot of yoga embedded in this. There's a lot of prosperity teachings in this that I sort of just lock them in. I didn't want it to be a text of, well, reference this and this. I was like, here are the teachings, but these practices will 100%, if you do these, will start changing. Your life will start to change for the better. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, because I took this from a literal 0 point. Then I moved up in the world and I was making $11 an hour living in Los Angeles, one of the most expensive cities on planet Earth, as a lot of you know. I'm sure Zurich's not cheap either. But I started to apply this stuff, these techniques, and things really started to shift quickly. But I do think it's not only these practices. I think there's some surrender to knowing I had a much higher purpose. And so I feel like these practices help you align and help that higher purpose come through, and then the clarity to know where to take action. But sometimes these actions create the space for so much to show up. And it just came to me based on my trajectory and my alchemy. Even pitching the book, I said, well, I went from $11 an hour to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And that sort of helped, because if you're making $1 million a year, but you need to level something up, $11 to a couple $100,000, that's a huge trajectory. So that's very impactful. So you can really scale up your life here. And I shared, some of these will hit harder than others. And maybe it just depends on what you need at that moment. Some of the ones that might be more challenging may mean that's what you really need to do. Like, the hardest one in here, in a way, is the most easy if you think about it. And that's just to not complain.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That I'm like, I love to shit talk and I love to skewer, and I'm a Scorpio and the world is crazy right now. But I don't know. I felt like if I just shared some of my experience, and then other people I know who had life-changing experiences with these practices, I just wanted to be real. So
Yeah,
much of this junk
totally.
out there, I don't hear what somebody actually did. Like, where did you come from? How did this practice actually change something about your life? And
Yeah.
then I didn't want to be like, oh, I'm just instructing you from I know what's best. And so I decided to share a lot of my experience. And it's quick. I mean, a lot of these, you can just use this book and open it up, change it up. Here's what I just opened up to. Do something new every day. Like, that's the practice. I got to write about it, but I literally could make a book that was just that. It would just be like 5 pages long.
I love it. I love how personal but really universal it is. You really struck the perfect balance there. And speaking of the kind of specific ones, the clean your shoes one and your story about who inspired it, I just loved it. And then I'll say also that there's a teaching that you passed to me like years ago, which is be a fit receptacle or a fit container for what you want. And that's in this book as well. And that one teaching is has changed my life, and I definitely reference it. Like, am I vibrating? Have I created the container? If I'm living at the caliber to, attract what I feel that is my destiny? So I don't know. I could go on and on about what's in this book. It's so good.
I think that's really important. Like, because some of those other books and these techniques and mindsets, to me, I feel like everyone's just trying to manifest like a fantasy. But
A
where, like,
non-reality.
what is it about? Like, it's your vibrational frequency, but also what's your nuts and bolts tangible earthly realm? Like, oh, I would like to receive a check for $1 million. I've read this stuff where people are like, I just started getting checks in the mail, like just completely aimless and dumbfounded, and just some, spaz of the universe showed up. I mean, sure, there are crazy stories, people win the lottery, things like that. But even to win the lottery, you still have to buy a ticket, right? You still have to do your job. So, like, what do you have that could be a vessel and a container for, say, $1 million, or a partnership? That's a big one, romance and finance. But, it's so much in my work too. So many people really, really want a partner and a marriage, and or the equivalent of, and I always hear like a laundry list of like what somebody wants. That's why I put the love list in here, which is like a gratitude list, but you just phrase, you know what? I love whatever. I love my shoes. I love my mom, the list, whatever, that's up to you. But I do find, and this could just be who I deal with and who I attract, but it's interesting where I would meet people with a great laundry list of demands of what they wanted in a partner, which is good to have some clarity. But I rarely heard what people had to offer. Like, and so how are you making yourself a fit receptacle? It's, all of a sudden you're a recluse and won't ever even go out on a date, for example. I think like, someone, their car is like full of, like, the passenger seat is just full of stuff, empty water bottles, clutter, changes of clothes from going to yoga studio, then off to work or whatever, right? I mean, I've certainly done it, but then you have no room for a passenger, right? So you're not a fit receptacle, or you have your bed all the way up against the wall. Like these little things like that, the universe is responding to the energies and logically what you're creating. And these are small, but I am telling you, this stuff really works. And if you also couple that with, a deeper meditation practice or some sort of practice that is in alignment to what you like and who you are spiritually, that is some sacred practice that keeps you in touch with your infinite soul, well, you're really gonna take things a lot further.
Totally.
I just didn't want to, I want this to be neutral, no matter what your spiritual tradition or what even your belief system is,
Yeah.
how these could work. So you could take someone who doesn't have any type of belief system, but if you keep an open mind and do this, and I kind of wrote it hoping that somebody too that might be struggling, is really dissatisfied with their life, maybe especially struggling financially, you could start to apply these and make a difference. And I'm not praying on here's your instantaneous overnight miracle, but when you get the ball rolling, things can start to move fast. That's my experience.
Yeah, but I think
Absolutely.
that's also not the goal. Like when I look at my own life, like from my perspective as a healer, what I see, people always say, "Oh, I want to manifest something." Well, you constantly do that. What we manifest is constantly the what we hold in our subconscious landscape. And if you don't like what you're seeing in the manifestation that you currently have, then you need to change some actions. And I think this book is a great opportunity to find possible actions that you can take And then it's the Aquarian age. You just try, and if it works for you, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's very simple, actually. You just try things, you try stuff, try to add something new, try to leave something, and then you see what the reflection of the outside world actually gives you. And
A
when,
million.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I was just saying 1,000,000%. I'm just confirming excitedly
Oh,
everything
thank
you're
you.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, to what add like to what you're saying, I feel that the universe and your higher consciousness and the divine and divinity responds to just someone when you start putting in a little energy and effort, right?
Yeah.
So is it even the specifics of that specific practice of what you think your end result is? Maybe not, but telling the universe, hey guys, hey universe, I'm starting to do the work. I want to make some big changes in my life. I feel like then the universe is like, okay, I got you. If you aren't so attached to exactly what the change is, we maybe even have better opportunity. But I just feel like when you start putting energy towards your own improvement, your own self-development, I meet people all the time and they're looking for a teacher. They don't know their path. And I'm always like, just start on something, start with some things that you're drawn to and you like. And that process, you just will come, the right things will start to show up for you. I mean, you guys probably experienced that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
totally.
mean, if anyone ever would have told me just 5 years ago, I'm not even talking like way back, but just 5 years ago that I would make money with teaching yoga. I create sound art, like the to be a sonic artist from mantra. I didn't even know what mantra was at the time. Really, like I knew it somehow that this annoying Indian music. I didn't like I
I
really
hear
did.
kirtan music, paddle faster.
Yeah, but I didn't like it. I didn't understood all these yogis with these yoga mats on the road, and I was like, what are they even doing all the time? Like, why would you be so like? And but the I think the funny thing is if you. I think bravery for me was one of my big prosperity hacks
Mm.
because it takes a shit ton of guts, or as I like to say, cojones, to actually walk the path, to actually try shit, to actually be like, okay, let's try. And then you're falling. And you're not falling in the sense of like just on the street. You fall like way down and you don't know this trust in you name it. Like I always say to all my clients, whether you call it God or you call it the universe or Mother Earth or whatever you want to call it, the higher that you belong to, like, and yourself, this trust to actually have fun in this lifetime and enjoy it and not be like slaved up in something that doesn't serve you. If it serves you, oh my god, so good. Like wherever you are and you feel that serves me, that's what I want to do. Good for you. I mean, not everybody is made for this super crazy stuff like probably we all do, like being artists and being like magical teachers with tarot cards. Like it's the 20% probably, as Guru Jagat always used to say. But I think it's if you feel that this is what you want to do, have the guts, because whenever a door is closing, one is opening. And I think your book is like the numerology book, by the way, as well. I know we're speaking majorly about prosperity today,
If
but
everyone buy both books.
yeah, do it. You have to. Like, if you don't have it in your library, I don't know what you're even doing.
Yeah, you need to get on it.
You have to. You have to. But can I ask, like, both of you? I would want to know both of your energetic opinion because I'm such a nerd when it comes to the energetics of things. And I have a very extensive Kundalini yoga prosperity practice, and it's getting even more extensive since I had my session with Guru Chas. So I'm spending a lot of time with prosperity practices. And I want to ask you, when you started like applying these things, were you able to like actually feel the shift, or did you just saw the results? Because in the beginning for me, I started to do the practices and I didn't feel different. I didn't, instantly felt, oh yeah, this is what changed or something, but the results started to show up. And then I was like, oh right, maybe that's because I'm doing the gratitude stuff, or maybe that's because I'm doing har or whatever it is then what that you do. So how was that for you?
Well, I could go.
Jamila, you go.
Well, I'll say that I've had so many like mental breakdowns in the process of going deep into my practice over the years. And I've had to like lock into the faith, because when I first found Kundalini, yes, my life got better and I knew it was a huge sign. It was an upward spiral, it was very, very clear. And so I kept going. I was in a very contracted space where I was incredibly shy, like you wouldn't believe. Like it's painful for me to go to the mailbox at the apartment building because I might see a person. My energy field was just super, I think, depleted and had probably lots of holes from my past. So anyways, my life got immediately better. But then when I went really hardcore deep into my practice, like, 1,000-day meditation, that type of thing. Oh my God. I mean, just the, and maybe Remi likes to make fun of me, like I, have a Virgo Saturn situation, and
Virgo moon. Yeah.
I'm like really, I can be really hard on myself, but I'm just sharing this to maybe give comfort or reassurance to someone else that may be going down a path and committing and then finding that life actually can get harder in their mind,
Oh, it
especially
does.
because you're confronting things that have never been dealt with before. Probably you're the first one in your entire lineage throughout time has like the buck stops here, and so I'm just here to say you have to keep going past that point, because it does get better. Yeah, it's like Hadi Jivan says, you're in a bad neighborhood, there's a landscape you're in and it's not comfortable. You have to keep going, you don't stop there. So I'll just say that you can have really, really hard times when you go deep, deep into your commitment to your higher self. You get tested. You get really tested. And I've been tested a lot. So that's what I have to share about that.
Love that.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
love this because thanks, Jamila and Nicole. Like we all kind of have some slightly different experiences here. Um, for me, like it definitely took me just having everything collapse and everything I thought I was building up and to sort of hit this wall and this transition. And not everyone necessarily has to do that. For me, I had a background. I mean, I was born into an ashram. I was born into yoga and meditation. My childhood, I was around a very high teacher, Swami Satchidananda. I was in his aura, like knew him personally. Um, and so I had some foundation, and I definitely chose that because of just lifetimes of this spiritual work. But and then I found the thing that was really my thing, and all the hermetic magic. And that's also where I learned to be a really good student. But this transition where I sort of hit this breaking point and this zero, and maybe it was some level of a Shakti pod, which is used in yoga terminology, where you sort of go flat or try to go live life as a mundane muggle, basically. And you sort of maybe try to turn on your path in some level. It doesn't always have to be so dramatic. We've seen a lot of people turn on their paths very dramatically and create an enemy out of it, but sometimes you just get sideswiped and you just want to hang out at the bar and watch the game for the rest of your life, whatever it is. But for me, I notice that the second I apply anything, and I love, see, Kundalini yoga to me is a system of magic.
Oh,
And
it
so
is.
I immediately, and magic and all my magical training is really about causing change, right? And you use these other techniques. But for me, like I had these sort of when I first discovered magic, that was a life shift and a destiny. And then moving to Los Angeles 20 something years later was a life shift and a destiny. And for me, Kundalini yoga was a big part of that. And that's like my main, like my personal practice of meditations and things like that. I found that stuff I immediately felt great. And so for a couple of years, I didn't know what to do with my life. I just kept showing up, doing practices, doing meditation, showing up for yoga, even when
Yeah.
I had no money, because for me, I just started feeling really good. So I'm like, well, all right, I'm just high from yoga. And life for me is like a lot easier to manage. And I don't mean high, like my head's up in the clouds and, sat namaste, everybody. Like, I just felt invigorated and I felt extra alive. And so you could say all these things say about Kundalini, but I was always like, this is like the yoga, the system of magic that like gives you Jedi powers. And I wasn't doing it for any power. I just was doing it because I fucking loved it. And then I met my community. So I'm like, oh, here are my friends. But I just felt I felt the shifts right away. It took me a couple of years to start to apply my projection and my intention. And
Yeah.
once I did that, I basically got tired of being an adult, in my like 40ish at the time, making $11 an hour. And I was like, you know what? I'm just done with this. And I drew another line in the sand and I said, okay, I did a certain prosperity meditation. This is when I really went next level with a lot of these. So I had a intention, but I don't know. It's literally been my entire life. I've been involved with spiritual practices, even hitting, and I hit this really horrific bottom. I got strung out on substances, like really, really deadly ones that literally, if I tried to take what I took, I would die. You would all die. Everybody listening would die. And sometimes, I had a good talk actually with Guru Joss a couple of days ago, and some souls, like sometimes you just have to go through that shit, and it's just the way it is. But I don't know. I guess for me is when I feel really good, it's a lot easier to cause change. But I just noticed this stuff works pretty fast if I have a goal. And so it took me a while to start thinking, oh, I want some goals. And if you like Nicole, like you said, like would you ever be doing sound and teaching for like to monetize that? Like I never thought. Like I knew this was my passion my whole life, but it was like my secret private life.
Yeah,
And I just
yeah.
figured, oh, I always have to have a job on the outside.
It takes so much
And
courage to go out to to take this step and to like to go out with these practices as well, I feel. Like I don't know how it is in the States. I think there is more space for a lot of identity, for a lot of projection, for a lot of radiance. And it's kind of also in the narrative of the country, of the United States, that people with, a certain type of aura, a certain type of projection are like, this is what is liked or what it's about. So it's, but here in Europe, like there are different countries, of course, and there are different kind of variations of that. But in general, the European energetic structure doesn't really allow and support people that are projecting very hardly into the field. It's very fascinating to see that. And I often I just spoke to Guru Joss as well. I often think like, oh, maybe I should go to LA or to the States, just because this it seems more supported by the matrix, by the energetic field of the country itself, than here, for example, in Switzerland, because Switzerland is super gritty, very masculine structure, very, it looks like little squares. And whenever you're applying like diagonals or even feminine energies, it's very, very difficult to actually bring it down into the collective mind. And I think so I think to be able to, like, you guys, both of you, by the way, I've been following you guys for years on Instagram, and sometimes people don't understand how much inspiration they are. Like Remington, you were such an inspiration for me when it came to like, oh, there are these magical people and they're allowed to be in the yogic community, and they they fit, we all fit together very well. Like all of these things were such an inspiration for me from Europe. Like, you only look at it from afar, and
Right.
it's super inspirational. And I think, like, when I read your book, when I started reading it and I heard your story, I was like, huh, I'm always very fascinated. You only see the surface of people. You could think like
Totally.
from afar, from your Instagram projection, from what I saw, you with Guru Jagat on the stage, you, the magician, you, like, all of these super well done projections, and the vibration, which is so rich and so abundant and so prosperous. And then I read the book and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful that you actually wrote it. Because to me what it said was, okay, like, it happens to everyone. And I got your book at the time I just come out of this breakdown. I just like 4 months ago, everything broke down, my businesses, like everything. And it was, for me, it was like, oh, this is so good, because there's options. Then there's, like, you can choose to have it different and don't give up and do it and just go. Yeah, I want to
There
say that.
are there are options. Jamila, you go. I have a lot to say on that too. Especially the
No.
America versus Europe.
Yeah, it's actually so rich to have, like, like a exchanges with you in this other matrix, because over here in America, we're all just like, oh, Europe, we just have this like fantasy of going there, how much better life would be. I know,
How
like when
conscious everyone
when
is.
when Remi and I were in Mallorca for the first time, we were just like plotting, like, okay, how can we like get here? And I know Mallorca is its own whole
Oh yeah,
situation.
it's the own vortex.
Yeah, but yeah, we have a interesting sort of projection about Europe, which is good to hear the other side of it.
W-
That's what I have to say about that.
Well, yeah, the I think Jamila, it had to be those chocolate croissants and Daya. That's why you were like,
I'm sure it's
I
that.
That
gotta
did
move
it. That
here.
did it.
Jamila's a super Taurus. Like on a total side note, whenever Gina, my wife, and I, whenever we travel and we go to places, our travel meter of a nice spot is like, it's like the Jamila meter. And we're like,
The
oh, Jamila,
croissant meter.
yeah, we are like, oh, Jamila would love this little place. Oh,
Oh
she
my
would love
God,
this. And we know that we're in the right place if we know that Jamila would be
it's
enchanted
so
by it.
good.
Um,
It's
but there,
Jamilified.
I think, I think, I think, Nicole, what you bring up from your point of view, like kind of watching our world from Europe, is 100%. And I think there's something so beautiful in an American mindset that has been really diminished lately,
Yeah, I agree.
of being a dynamo, right? And
Mm.
so a lot of people forget, like, that as an American, you're actually raised. I was raised, and I grew up on an ashram. I have totally alternative hippie parents that did craft shows for a living, and I was like embarrassed. I wish my dad worked at a corporation, and played golf and had khaki pants and short hair. But you're encouraged to be a dynamo. You're encouraged to like stand in your ability and your power. We never had any type of monarchy, and I don't think Americans are being raised this way, in the sense that we were a rebel nation and we broke a paradigm from the entire planet. So historically, if you tune into that, right, or we literally broke a paradigm where all of the planet was under the authoritarian rule of a divine supreme king, queen, etc. That's a very odd notion to me, but you're encouraged to say, okay, go fucking create a kick-ass life for yourself. And
Yeah.
now too many people are just conditioned to be ultra dependent. And so you can still use that American zeal and that rebel spirit, and imagine applying that to spiritual success,
Oh
spiritual
yeah,
attainment.
totally.
I mean, even the founding fathers, because everything is like, everyone now, they own slaves and blah, blah, blah. And it's all true. And there's dark history. There's dark history everywhere. All these Americans that fantasize about how beautiful and conscious Europe is. I'm like, Europe, the same country, the same continent that gave us the fucking Holocaust, that gave us war for thousands of
Hundreds of
years, literally.
years.
Hundreds, but if you
Right.
go into Europe, and I mean, go into Greece and Rome and barbarian culture, like
Oh,
thousands of years of fighting,
Babylon, 5,000 years.
and then the Holocaust, and then everything to me seems state controlled. I was like, okay, like, your consciousness comes from within. It is, we choose countries and places. There's things about Europe I love, and I still fantasize about moving to Mallorca and whatnot. But I
Who
think
doesn't?
that, but in the United States is big enough. Like, we're used to LA. I was just in New York City, and I was like, in LA, in Los Angeles, the worst insult you could ever give somebody is to tell them they're so 3D. Right? You're just a salt of the earth. You know how to get stuff done on a practical, earthly realm way. And then in New York City, I feel like that's the highest compliment. Oh, you're so 3D. Oh, you really get things done in the real world, right? So to me,
Mm,
I'm like, oh, that's so East Coast as an American. And then Europe is that much more East Coast. But I think that there's great. I think for you, like, you're doing this in the culture that you live in and
you have
sharing
to.
that. And so you're activating something there. And even when we moved to Vermont, like, literally polar opposite side of even on the diagonal, like Southern California to the total Northeast, Tage, my teacher, and it was so hard to tell her we were moving because we were involved daily with helping her on some level and just around. And she just said, okay, she has this little nod, and she said, you're supposed to bring this there. Right. And I you know, I think that I think any spiritual path, you're going to be encouraged, hey, your karmic crap is your karmic crap. So if you want to cause change, like, it's up to you. Like,
Mm.
nobody, even in Eastern traditions, nobody's just going to give you enlightenment, right? You may have a guru, and they may, like, give you the tools and sort of, be this guide and this teacher. But you still have to do all the work. And I think people forget that. And I think the shadow, if you will, of the Aquarian age is people sort of demand that things can happen instantaneously because the energy is thinner and easier and lighter and faster. And we have access to so much more. We can cause change like we weren't able to cause change. I mean, think about if it was 1980 and you just wanted to create some flyers to print off for a yoga class you're teaching. You literally are going to be cut and pasting, right? And then you got to go to a printer or pay. Like, now you're just like boom, boom, boom on your phone. But people think, oh, your spiritual growth can just be Amazon primed, is what I always say. And so there is a lazy entitlement that I think is something to be mindful of because we have access and people just want everything for free. So this book, although I have had a couple of people just read it, not even apply the practices yet, and had major, major changes.
Oh, I love that.
Like fat money job, like money that
I
they
love
never
that.
thought they could make type of jobs
Wow.
from like going through the book. So I don't know. Things, if we just just, it works if you work it. Apply yourself. That's the key with spirituality, is you have to apply yourself. Nobody's going to come in and do it for you. And I think maybe some cultures somehow, that the more you're provided for, the more you sort of think, oh, well, it'll just be taken care of. Yeah, the government will give you my spiritual growth and fulfillment.
Entitlement. Yeah.
There is a weird Aquarian entitlement.
I can see it in myself. I've worked through a lot of entitlement stuff, and I think it's, for me, probably past life, like coming into thinking I deserve X, Y, and Z, and the fact that hasn't shown up yet. I'm like, oh my God. But it's caused me so much like internal evolution, having to face and break through that kind of self-conditioning.
I find it, I'm
I
sorry.
see it a lot. No, please go.
No, please. I'm sorry.
No, that was my thought.
Okay. Okay, then I felt it. I was like,
yeah. No, that was it.
for me, like, I think about this entitlement storyline since the last like 2, 3, 4 weeks, where it comes more into my consciousness. I started like creating some courses with tantric malas, and then all of a sudden, like, I created a course, I did like the packaging and everything, and then people wanted to know, like, where do you buy your things, and where do you like in the details, the nitty gritty details, which is like basically then all also your expertise. And I had this discussion with someone that creates these malas, and I said, what is the Piscean aspect of like not giving away certain things? And what is the Aquarian aspect of it? For me, it was like, because in the Piscean age, knowledge was held back, you know? You would kind of gatekeep certain things in order, or mystery schools were like a thing, and like all of that, just because knowledge was power. And then on the other hand, the Aquarian age, the only thing that counts is your applicability, and if you apply something or not. And I was like, I was discussing this with this woman, and I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I'm not giving it out. I tell them you can find crystals, like these beads on Etsy, and go there and look for yourself. And I was debating with myself, because I'm a person that gives away like everything I know, like very freely. And I started to realize that that's probably not the best thing, and not because I want to make it complicated, but because the fact that when you search for your own path, for your own quality, for your own, with the malas now, like, what type of crystals do you choose? Like, how do you source them? What are you looking for? Do you source from cheaper mines, or do you source super good quality? Like, this is like also a reflection of yourself and of your inner prosperity, your inner abundance. So I'm like, I'm always like a bit, I don't want to be too Piscean age, when that makes sense. Or people like ask me often for meditations, and I'm like, I don't know, choose between these three. But um, and then I just talked to another Canadian yoga teacher. You're like, don't even ask me for a Kriya. Like, you want to know it? Go find it yourself. Like, to make it more difficult to actually get to the juices. Like, that's what I want to say. So what's your take on that, like, in general, or with your experience with your, because you're teaching a lot as well, both.
No, you go, Remi.
Okay, so my teacher in magic always said, if you look at the pyramids, which are, we still have no scientific explanation, modern science, right? We don't know, but he said, look, everything was provided for the ancient Egyptians to build those pyramids. It just so happened that those stones were available, I think it's about 600 miles away, right? So like, it's all there, but you got on some level, it was a reference to this teaching of, you have to put in some effort and some work. And so I think this is a really interesting point. I do want to say, just because somebody teaches Kundalini doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about Kundalini, but or
Yeah.
magic or anything else. I mean, if someone's coming to you, I mean, I actually podcasted about this. It's in the first page of the Aquarian teachers training that people will be broken and I'm totally paraphrasing, but people will be broken and confused and despair, and their heads are going to be hitting against a wall, and they're going to come to you, and it's your job to help that situation and to change that. Magic doesn't, I mean, even Kundalini yoga, nothing's supposed to be for free. You have to have an exchange. Also, for the people out there trying to get everything for free, not even based on a monetary value, then it's not going to do anything for you. Right. So I put a lot of content on Instagram. I used to pick a daily tarot card every single day, 4 years. I never missed one day, period. Never. I've had to do it from a taxi cab crossing the Williamsburg Bridge in New York, because I was like, oh shit, I got to pick a card. I'm about to go teach, from airport in Iceland to the list goes on. And I'm like trying to find internet so I could post the card. And that was like my little service to the world. And then when I stopped, because that was a good run, 404 years, there's 1,000 something readings, I was like, I'm going to just move this over to Patreon. And like, I had so many sanctimonious unfollows. And I'm just like, you're just digging your own grave. Like you, like that entitlement is very interesting. So, but if people, if they're coming to you, they're coming to you. But also we have to learn. It's a balance, learning to monetize teachings. It's not like the olden days of magic where like Nostradamus just traveled around giving his teachings and prophecies and everybody took care of him. Like, that's an old structure. The Piscean age relied on a donation structure, and people supported spiritual teachers and communities. And like, you don't think all the churches and monasteries and Buddhist monasteries, they're constantly having to get money. We met the Oracle of Tibet, and there's a million places for envelopes to just keep giving cash, and they still manage to rely on that system. But it's a little different now. Just because you have the information available to you, you have to put in the work for that experience. So I think I just don't drop everything. I create sort of subtle energies, a barrier to entry, because people have to apply some intelligence. Sometimes I'll intentionally make a link a little harder to find. And that may sound bad for business if I was just trying to sell shoes or something, but you have to go through something. A really good book I'd recommend is Meetings with Remarkable Men. And it's about somebody on their spiritual journey and the trials and tribulations and sort of initiations they had to go through. And then finally they find their path. It's loosely inspired up by the story of Gurdjieff, as far as I know, who's like a Zoroastrian teacher. But yeah, I mean, this entitlement will get you nowhere. I mean, I was flat broke, and I asked the teachers that I have, I found them because they had a donation class, and it changed my life. And I still had no money for a few years, and they let me come on a donation. I just had to donate something that was up to me. So you need that exchange. You need some exchange. And I do think about it. I've been like dropping free meditations sometimes. I did something for free for the solstice to build community. Should I have left a spot for people to put in some sort of donation, even if I donated to a charity? Maybe I might do that next time, because even with doing readings, the one thing I learned is not just, okay, I have a name for myself, I'm really good, and I have a huge wait list, I could charge more than I do, but also people get less out of it. If I charge $25 for a reading, people, for the most part, they're going to get they're energetic. I'll do the exact same reading. They're going to get a $25 reading. My readings are 444, and people are getting that. So It's an interest. I think it's something that we're still navigating, but I think charging, and do I see people just ridiculously overcharge for shit that I know they don't have that caliber? Absolutely.
Yeah,
That'll be their karma.
totally. Yeah. It's so interesting. I really like, can we go into numbers and charging a little bit? Because I think that's so interesting that
Yeah.
all the magicians and all the people that like use these type of energies, they all use the numerology with the pricing of their products. I think that's
Yeah.
super fascinating. And
Uh, yeah.
do you want to say something with that?
I was just gonna chime in. It drives me crazy, but continue.
No. Two.
Oh, should I chime in?
Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm always like, everything's got to be like a double or triple number. And I'm like, I'm a numerologist, so it's on brand, honestly.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could just charge 450. But I just do it in a way because it's almost expected. But
Yeah.
sometimes I've gone to like crystal stores and I'm like, you know what? It's like $111 crystal, but in my mind, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I feel like this is a $95 crystal, but they had to like they didn't charge 999. I don't know. It's just I think it's easy. I don't know that those number tricks create more sales or not. Everyone wants to know what's the number that's going to wind up making me the most money. Don't end things in a zero, things like that. And I think that there's a level of just being practical. Like, what is it? What is your value? Right? What are you offering? I have a practice in this book to know if you, especially if you offer a service, how to get in touch with what your value is and start to decide how do you charge for that. That was a lot of my lessons. And it also
Oh
ties into
yeah.
the prosperity crystal citrine, where it's like I used to charge $111 and I worked with someone and they had me do this meditation that I put in this book. Not from any traditions, more like very experienced life coach sort of mindset. And I tapped into what I was actually providing people, which is a complete instruction of the like their soul and their incarnation and the highest potential, medium potential, okay potential, and really
Mogul potential.
and then where can it all go dark? And I'm like, here's your soul's instruction manual for your incarnation. And I'm like, what is that worth? And I'm like, that's worth thousands of dollars, really. But I went from charging 111 to 222 at that time because, I was sort of guided to be like, assess what are you really giving? What's the value? What do you think that's actually worth? What are you offering? And I'm like, this is life-changing shit. And so that's how I was comfortable then upping my rate to 222 and
Yeah.
telling my first client that I was charging 222 who had never had a reading with me. I was petrified. And then once I hit that hurdle and I just said it's 222, it's that story's in this book because it was a pivotal moment in my life. And I think a lot of us charge for services and totally undervalue. I'm not going to go I'm not going to go to the $20 tarot reader or whatever. But I think you have to know and then be reasonable. In my mind, I wouldn't be comfortable probably charging the several $1,000s that it's probably ultimately worth.
Yeah, are you going to? I think that'd be great. If like a special package or something.
I thought
Like
of just having like a $10,000 reading.
Yeah.
And I
I think that's a
guarantee
good idea.
whoever I'd go a little more involved, but whoever got the $10,000 reading is gonna get a $10,000 reading.
I
Because
think
it's gonna
do it.
change something.
That's what I do. I started like when I started as a healer, I was still in school, like kind of like so, and so I charged this like a certain amount per session. And now I only work in packages, and my packages are 3,000 Swiss francs, which is like three in dollars. And I only work in packages, and I give free discovery calls because I think you need to know who you get in touch with, and you need to know the technology of EMDR and why I not only do EMDR but also have the connections to the ancestor line, past lives, and all of that. But and then there's some people and with the absolute right to say, oh, that's expensive. And I fully agree, it is expensive. It's 3,000 Swiss francs. But the value you get, I take you from one timeline that you're currently in, and I bring you through the work that we do together and being in my aura over 2 months to a totally different timeline where you then can go off and can explore new things where it would have taken you lifetimes to get there. So I think it's always like it's very interesting to have these discussions, especially with people that evolved over years with their work. And it was super difficult for me to create that package and to actually like embody that. Oh no, I don't want to do single sessions anymore because my essence energy is so transformative. I don't serve you but best in a single session. And to have the cojones basically to say, this is what I do. I only do packages and I only do 2 months, and then I don't want to do it anymore. Also that. To have the gut to say, oh, I don't want to have repetitive clients. So yeah.
For me, it's been really interesting because, I built my business 1111 on $10 card holders but with my art on them, and my whole game was volume. I had to sell quite a lot of card holders to make a living. And then when I created Starwater Yoga, I specifically wanted to be much more elevated, and the art was completely different, very much higher elevation frequency in the art. And so I created it to be more of a luxury and with the price point that was more reflective of that. But it's still very inexpensive if you consider art. Like I would say, like, because my mats were like 140 when I started, but they're large. Yeah, they're yoga mat size, right? But people would like balk at that because it's a yoga mat, but really it's art. And so I would say, well, a piece of art that size on your wall would cost a lot more money. But as an artist, I didn't even like talking about money or justifying anything. And it's just something I've meditated on a lot because art prices, this is just my left field. This is obviously very different than what you guys offer, but art prices are wildly overinflated and conceptual, and also money laundering, so it's
Yeah.
just it's
I was,
really
I
it's
was
this
literally going to
strange
podcast
world.
about Jackson Pollock. I think he was a money laundering scam.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Also, CIA, the connection of the CIA with modern art. I mean, it put so much into focus when I realized that there was a whole stream of that going
Okay,
on.
I got to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry to interrupt. I was just
I'll
intrigued.
send
That's
you
lovely.
especially there's a whole book on what Warhol and his connection to the CIA. It's fascinating. But anyways, I don't know that I have a huge point. I'm just sort of sharing my experience as an artist wanting to place more value on my art, but I've on purpose built businesses that are about creating practical things, which I think have, are much less valued. They're not fine art, right? But I feel that I do create fine art. I just happen to put them on practical things. So I don't know if either of you have advice for me.
Yeah, well, you're selling goods. I think you also have to just assess what the market is. I think in the Aquarian age, the karma is way worse when you're selling something disingenuous and then charging a disingenuous price. Well, honestly, what drives me crazy is I see all these new like astrologers and readers popping up on the quote scene, if you will, and they mistake that they think the going rate might be something that I charge. And that's not what the going rate, in my opinion, should be. And I see people that charge more than I do. And I'm like, I literally dedicated my entire fucking life, like through like fucking blood on my knees, sweat and tears, the fucking magical path, doing yoga from birth and meditation and like um and learning this for real. So there's a different caliber. Fucking somebody who's like, yeah, I just read a little astrology online and now I'm doing readings. Sure, start doing readings, but be mindful. What do you have? So if you're like thinking, oh, the going rate is $600 for a session, I'm going to charge that because I'm pretty. Well, you're gonna fucking give yourself like butt cancer, man. Like your root chakra is gonna get fucked up. There's an interlude that you're creating,
Mm-hmm.
but it also like maybe that person is good. It depends. There's a contract. Someone else decides they want to pay that. But if you like the Aquarian age, like the Piscean age, everything was fake. Like look at how crappy American cars were, right? And people would buy them. You could just sell fraud, but there's like a new level of sneaky fraud now, whether it's fucking selling readings, charlatans. We're right in the cut, like we're right in the moments, like the first nanoseconds of a new stream of consciousness. And where maybe a lot of us and people tuning in might be a little ahead of a game and aware and dedicate their life to it, but not everyone else is. So I think I see a lot of charlatans, a lot of scams coming in hot, crap I see floating around the internet. Like you just there's a lot of junk out there.
Yeah, a lot.
Amen.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like healers. I don't know. Yeah, I I don't know. I mean, it's important that you have some discernment and awareness. Someone had a comment, they don't mind paying, they have to feel a connection with the reader. And I totally agree with that. A lot of my sessions, I noticed, especially in the beginning, people really just were paying to it didn't even so much matter what I said, but there was some energy transmission they wanted to be a part of. But I do a lot less one-on-ones now. I'm more into teaching. To be honest, my Patreon for $22 is it's a mental insane value, but
It
I'm
is.
comfortable with it because it becomes like it's, some of it's numbers as well. So I think you just have to be smart and reasonable, understand what you're offering, what would it actually be worth to you, and you got to charge something that's also kind of sane and rational based on a market to some extent.
Yeah, totally. That makes
But
sense.
also for me, as I say this out loud, where do I up my game and my value? Like I had a client that I worked with regularly, and they took all of these readings and navigated a multi-million-dollar business to the tune of juggling 40-50 million dollars around. A lot of it not solely based on my readings, but I'm like, oh, I'm undercharging there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Do the
So
$10,000 option. I want to see that. I think that'd be so great.
Oh, and please let us know when it's booked.
Yeah. Yeah.
DM us.
Yeah.
but I don't want to
We
do it
want
just because I'm like, oh, I want
No, no, no,
$10,000. It's
not
an
about,
no,
no.
energy
no.
thing.
I really think there, the question is, do you have the vessel to do the transmissions for 10K? And I think you absolutely do. And because like what people don't fully understand when they start to do that is you have to have the nervous system capacity in order to download the stream of energy and to project into the auric field of the person to activate the certain things in the right time, in the right capacity that actually you have a real exchange. And and there are not a lot of people that can do that in this field, like as well as I was like, I remember it just came to my mind when you spoke about the teachers, and I remember, and healers, I remember I was always very um timid or shy about if my quality of work would be really be good, or if it would be like, like I always challenged myself to if I really um served enough. And I was always like, oh, if I only would hear once from a big teacher that what I do is really of high quality, then I would have the guts and the feeling that it's the truth, what I feel that I do. And then when Guru Jagat was a Deya, the last summer before she passed away, I was sitting in the room and we had the first class done. And then she said, "Oh, we have some absolutely amazing world-class healers here." And she looked in my direction. And I was like, "Oh my God, who is it?" Like I looked in my bag and she said, like, "Oh no, I mean you, Nicole." And I didn't even know that she knew my name. Like that was the thing. And so I received this huge gift of self-esteem, basically, in that my analysis of my work is correct, coming from one of the highest teacher that I knew by that time, right? So that was so much healing when it came to that. And it really it changed so much in my inner peace of the work, and in my ability to know that I'm on the right path, and in my ability to, like, all of that really like clicked in just with this one little sentence. And it was absolutely phenomenal. And I think it's super super prosperous and abundant as well. Like sometimes for your own prosperity or for your own abundance, it's not the external thing that is lacking. It's like kind of a puzzle piece that you receive, and then things can like almost click in, and then the projection can change, and with more peace and more clarity. And it's probably not a very American thing to go even less out, but rest within. But I could now also go out more. Like, you know what I mean? The I'm working currently with Botakaram since a long time. This is a mantra for those of you that don't know Kundalini yoga so well, or coming more from the magical side. It's a mantra, and it's a prosperity mantra. Botakaram is so annoying. It's like very, very difficult to handle, but it also clicks in a lot of things. It really it does these. It's kind of like a Lego. And yeah,
I
so
love that.
yeah, I thought about speaking about that. That came to my mind.
Well, I love that it's an internal job, and
Mhm.
that's why this book is so amazing. And I'm gonna work with it a lot more. I feel like I'm already doing some of the things like the giving away, clearing to. I think I'm in a huge clearing thing personally, so I'm gonna lean into that teaching there. But
You know what?
yeah, it's the internal job.
My mom started doing that practice. Well, it's funny because I think you can really use this book and just open up and just choose a practice, whether you focus on
Absolutely.
that for the day. Because I did it myself and I just opened to change it up. And so that's actually from the Hermetic magical tradition, is you're supposed to do some things differently. And it could be as little as like, when's the last time you wore, like, yellow is a color that nobody really wears or rarely, but like wear a different color. Like you always, like, you go to work and you always go the exact same route, and change it, take a left instead of a right, try a different style of shoes than you would normally wear, go out. The possibilities are endless and it seems so small, but what that practice starts to create is like that it creates change. It shifts your brain, right? It's like, when you just rearrange your house and the furniture and you're like, oh, this feels really good.
I
I think
constantly do that.
you're responding to the change, but also this way you start to get a better intuition on when sometimes opportunities show up for you and you need to take that action. And so I feel like there's some energy of like you got to be a little bit of like, I don't want to say like a predator. You need some sort of like predatory hunter predator instinct to know, shit, this opportunity is right here. I'm going to move fast and take it and see what can be done with it. And if you're constantly in the same old, you're going to be afraid of something that just shows up that's like, fuck yeah, that's what I'm going for. Let me learn about this, whatever that that practice or whatever is small or big it is. It could be as benign as, for example, Gene and I we have the furniture. We didn't have any furniture. The furniture at our house was what was left here that they didn't sell for the estate sale. And we were so busy just with the move across the country. And then that's another expense, but the bigger expense was time and trying to, where the fuck do you even buy furniture these days? And like, I was like, wait, I'm a homeowner, Memorial Day sales. Everyone's like, that's a big furniture. And so we had a small window and I was like, it seems so small, but I was like, let's take advantage of these opportunities because this is stuff we needed to do. But I think like for me, I just opened up. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do some things and change it up. Because that was like a message. And I think this book you can use and receive those messages like that, which
Absolutely.
might be my next project.
Can I
Oh,
ask you something as a definition? Because you had this beautiful definition that you wrote in the beginning of the book. For those of you that don't have it, is what's the definition of prosperity? And you went into that. And then what I always love to hear from people is what is the difference for them between prosperity and abundance? Because I feel it's so interesting to hear all of that. Like maybe both of you can give any thoughts on it if you would be willing.
prosperity is super holistic to me. It's richness in all the areas of life that matter. So because you can be very financially well off but very poor in spirit and in love. And so prosperity is the richness in all the facets of life that matter. And then abundance is just having enough to share, it's having enough, it's a flow. It's like when the faucet's turned all the way open and it's just flowing through you. And so it's enriching your own life and then those around you in your circle. So that would be
Oh,
my
I love that abundance is when
Oh,
you
I
also have enough to share. Because I was thinking the opposite. I'm like, well, abundance, can be like you just sometimes have too much of something, right? I have an abundance of like tasks to do or whatever. But I think that's really good. I like this simple notion that I heard a number of years ago. Prosperity is time, love, and money.
Mm, I
More
love that.
time.
Yeah,
See, and then I added health in the book.
I love that.
But
So
yeah.
true.
but the thing is, my personal journey, the finance was a part of it, but I have the time. That's the thing. Like, sure, I'm like, I have a busy life, but I'm like the energy that I have to put into this work isn't like a grueling, 16-hour days or anything. Like and that's where you start learning and become a fit receptacle. What is your vibrational frequency work versus time? And so I'm learning on a very American way. How do I scale this up where I can be less involved? Because even if I charge, let's say I charge $1,000 for a one-on-one and I could book all of those, that's still finite, right? And
Yeah, very
so
much so.
I'm trying to cross a threshold from pretty good living, honestly, to a wealth threshold. And nobody that's like wealthy, it's not from working a job. It's not about hours spent, even though you have to put a lot of time into something. You got to build something that takes off that's bigger than you having to show up all the time. Like Jamila is sitting on a business and getting things set up where it's like not like you have to show. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna draw this every time somebody orders it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This I'm
Yeah,
actually going to
yeah.
start carrying around because
Oh,
I
yay.
always take notes about things I want to discuss or teach or podcast about. And if I'm with Isaiah, I don't always want to have my phone out. So
I
I'm going to
love
start carrying this
that.
like to the park. Also, Marissa, thanks for the 4th of July sale tips.
Yeah, that's good.
But
Yay.
yeah, I think just creating a life, I think time is really important. And for a
Yeah,
lot of people, money is really important, but then it's the love. We know people who we at some point we want we want to create more of that, whatever it is for you, that's your thing.
I think what's
Totally.
also very fascinating, what I found out is I have, whenever I create an art piece, the days before and the days after, plus the days the creation comes through, or the weeks, that I very often have time that I'm basically not productive.
Mm,
And this what I found out, but that's years ago, of course, but I just found out that my ability to channel stuff and to download knowledge, also for people, by the way, that's also like with my clients, like when I download like these life path things, I need these down times, these non-productive times, these walks in the forests and at the lake, and like all these um times that I spend like with not working, because the information needs to kind of densen down into a type of vibration, that I can read it better in my auric field. And with my yogic practice, with like also the connection with all the experience that I have, I feel like the capability gets bigger to download faster, because there's more clarity in the senses, there's more clarity in the chakras, there's more clarity also where does shit come from actually. So I go there more directly. But these, like, for if we have on our talk some people that are very creative, or are healers, or are mystics, I feel that's a very, very important part of understanding that whenever you work for yourself, creating like these scalable business parts where you have actually then downtime and can still have some income rolling. I think that's the absolute goal, because and books are ideal for that. Like I feel the if you I heard Jordan Peterson saying something very interesting. He said, those who can write are always the winners. The
mm,
moment you're able to write down actually what's going on, or what you have to teach, or what you do, or write down your thoughts and make logic of it, those will be the winners in this new time. And I tend to agree with him on that, because
I
I
love
think,
that.
yeah, I think it's such an interesting notion to take on. Yeah.
Yay. Well, I think everyone needs to buy this book like right now if you
Yeah.
haven't already.
Yeah, so I could scale everything up. Hey,
Yeah, so
buddy.
there are two books. It's the prosperity one. I hold it here so you can get it. And then there's the numerology one. You need both, because
Totally agree.
Isaiah wanted to join in.
oh, hello, lovely Isaiah. Amore.
He's, um, yeah, I appreciate all this support, but prosperity practices is just so well, they both are near and dear to me, obviously, but I was like vulnerable enough to share some of my struggles and my trajectory, and then like, look, it worked for me. Like you know, you can feel like that down and out, where I really felt like, I'd always started to feel like I was always at the wrong place at the wrong time, and a day late and a dollar short. That's ultimately when I was that suicidal and thought my solution is to check out, is because it just seemed like no matter what I was trying, somehow it didn't work out. And I'd lost my little job waiting tables, trying to rent a room in LA. And I thought I was starting to stabilize and grow, and I was also, and I know a lot of people have hit those points. So there's a way, as the yogic teaching goes, and I put it in the book, there's a way through every block. And then you gotta just start doing things you want. Like you got to make yourself a fit receptacle on all of these different levels. Like you're not going to make $1 million off of a business if you don't even have a business. Like so we create all these channels, and that's why it was really simple. Prosperity practices, do this, it's practical. If fucking it ain't, it ain't spiritual if it ain't practical. Otherwise, If you don't
I
put
love
it into
that.
action, it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo philosophy. You should go, try to get a degree and then teach in academia, not in like practical science, but just in philosophy and ideas.
Yeah, and I think it's
So good.
every block that we come through, like what I would like to say, maybe as like I feel the field is closing down. So I feel what I want to say is even when you're going through blocks, even when you're going through difficult times, like again, everything that you experience is a reflection of something that you're still holding within you. And it's the biggest chance to actually go into your iCloud of data hub called body and to actually see what you're holding as a vibration. Oh my God, prosperity elephant is here
He
too.
just handed me this. Speaking of
Oh,
clearing
thank
blocks,
you,
little
darling.
Ganesh.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Isaiah.
buddy.
Oh, I say wonderful.
Thank you. So
So
yes,
good.
we're clearing blocks as we record.
Yes, we do that.
Totally,
Yeah, I think
totally.
it's just like don't go into manifestation as a very head driven thing and think that you do manifestation every day. Relax. Just start to actually watch what you're manifesting and the things you don't like change them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, he's totally,
absolutely.
I love that he's saying yes to me.
He's chiming.
Love
Yeah,
that.
he's
In.
adding a couple of other. I agree.
Yeah.
Um, okay. He's manifesting going to the park.
Oh my God, that's so good. Well done.
Perfect. Oh
And
my
I
gosh.
think too, the ultimate magical teaching is that you have like your true will, which is your divine purpose, not your ego driven will. That's a big misnomer. Love is a law, love under will. And ultimately we all have a unique mission and work to do here, and that's doing that is what's going to give you the most fulfillment. And my teacher always said it was like your true mission and will to like work at a gas station, nothing else is going to give you this soul satisfaction. So like kind of let go of maybe your attachment of the outside of that. It may not be about your job, and just be open, because we all have a unique soul purpose here, and we all came to this planet with unique talents and gifts, and we all have our own mission.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so
uh
pumped up, you guys. Thank you.
well, thank you guys. I'm so glad you guys started doing this and spiritual nerd talk. And Jamila, when you reached out, I was super excited. I'm like, of course I'm doing. Are you kidding?
Nerd chat.
So
Chat for the win.
yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, why don't you share for those that don't know you, where people can find you and buy your
Yeah.
book and
So
yeah.
yeah, both my books, Prosperity Practices and my numerology book, are available worldwide, all major booksellers, Amazon. You can get it, Barnes and Noble. You can buy like even Walmart online sells my book.
Oh my God,
Um,
amazing.
but I love local bookstores to support, but also the reality is like Amazon is a centralized algorithm for like reviews, and it boosts things. So there is that, but you can get it everywhere. And right now in Western Europe and North America, and then find the Mystical Arts is my Instagram. You can click on it here if you don't already follow me. And then I'm Remington Donovan. You'll search, you'll see my website, all that stuff pops up. I have a podcast, The Mystical Artist, that I do with my wife Gina. We're about to start taking that to another level soon. So and then I have a retreat. There's still a spot left. Someone had to rearrange their plans. So that's opening up end of July. So there's a lot going on. So just find my website, find my Instagram, and you'll see it all.
Amazing. Thank you
Amazing.
so much, Remington.
Yes, thank you
Thanks,
so
Greatest,
much.
greatest
guys.
pleasure to have
Nicole
you.
is amazing. Zurich is on our list. With the last
If
we
you
thought we were
come
gonna
over,
go.
we gonna do like a magical, mystical night with you. If you're like with interview and everything, I have this room, and I'm bringing more and more teachers in, so it would be the greatest pleasure to
That'd be
have you for a
amazing.
weekend.
Yeah, we were looking into it for the last what we thought would be the Rama Festival 2020, and then all this
Yeah,
we get back from Egypt, we were already planning Europe, and then boom,
we're locked
COVID, all
down.
that crap. And now
Yeah,
we have a kid. So it's all in the works.
Yeah, it'll
amazing.
happen. Oh, and I just want to say we're on Spotify now, everybody.
Oh yeah,
And
we
also
are.
YouTube. So I have the Spotify link in my bio, and I'll get the YouTube in there too. So FYI, this will be up for your listening pleasure real soon. So yes.
Love you
Thank you
guys.
Amazing.
both. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
love
Bye,
you.
everyone. Thanks
Bye.
for listening. Bye bye.
Bye.